Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. Martin, Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. We do a program 1 till 4 live every day on the platform. This is the highlights package of that particular show. Justin Morgan, Warriors coach, assistant coach, mate, that. Are the Wawa's top 6? Are they saying internally without telling anyone externally that they're actually targeting top 4? We'll go to Vegas and talk about the Stanley Cup, where the Golden Knights, after only being in the league 6 years, have claimed that particular sport's greatest prize. Ashes cricket kicking off tomorrow. 5 days with a glorious test cricket over 5 whole tests. You don't like it? Jog on. And the US Open. All the odds, all the faves from our man Matt Vincenzi. But first, as always, tablets in hand, I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Moan, moan, moan. Leave our sport alone. Okay, millennials, this is where you need to jog on. Look away. Go back to your 30-second attention span, dick pic, Instagram. 2 fantastic sporting events kick off tomorrow that have history, tradition, and are played in formats that deserve to be left untouched and exactly as they are. I'm talking the Ashes. First competed for in 1882, 1883. And the US Open, first played for in 1895. In this world we now live, where everything has to be chopped and condensed into 15-second TikTok, get your kid off, random no-names, who cares? Seen today, forgotten 10 seconds later, load of bollocks. Sport is for those who love it, who want to watch it as it is, as it was, because that's the beauty of it. It doesn't need to change or be changed. The Ashes, Test cricket, 5 days worth. 5 separate tests, and it's glorious. And you can't get a ticket for under £1,000 in England. Every one of those 5 tests sold out for the first 3 days. It doesn't need reformatting. It's exactly as it is because it just needs to be and stay exactly as it is. It's not hit and giggle, T20 or 100 or a New York IPL 4-team Tret Bowl, Texas, who cares, load of pony tournament. It's test cricket. If you don't like it, so what? Go and stuff with something else. Same with the US Open. 4 days worth. The first 2 is the weeding out process. If you're not good enough, you're not playing well enough, you don't make it for Saturday and Sunday. But that's not fair. That's not every fat kid gets a prize. Every player gets player of the day. No, it's not. It's competitive. It's viciously competitive, like life. Sometimes it also kicks you in the slats, like life, and we learn from it. But it's not fair. We need to play 3 rounds where there's no cut, where everyone gets a prize, where everyone gets to play the whole tournament, where even if you lose, you still get rewarded. Go away. Leave us alone. The majors are the majors are the majors. Win one and your whole life changes forever. Win a live golf tournament and no one will ever remember. Please leave our sport alone. The Ashes and the US Golf Open. The more things change, the more essential things like these need to stay the same.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
CEO of New Zealand Football's now, he's right in line. He's ticked all those boxes. Oh, you can't wait. FIFA. How far can I get my tongue up your rectum? Anyway, Lachlan, give me some news headlines before we go to Dooley and talk some goddamn
sense. Is that what that sound was meant to be?
I'm being Andrew Pragnell, the CEO of New Zealand Football, on his knees with his head up as far as you can possibly get it.
All right, then. Well, you know what he'd be saying right now?
That's the most important thing, New Zealand football, for you, isn't it, eh? Really, what a laughing stock of an organisation. Santa's pig! Sorry, I don't mean that. I mean you're fighting the good fight and doing God's work.
Fight.
That's right. It's more important than winning a game and scoring. Who wants that for our national women's team? What a moron to even suggest it.
Anyway, let's get to the news. We'll put the opinion to the side and get to the cold, hard facts.
Hard facts.
Hard! Start with rugby. We heard a bit of it there on the top of our news, that the Rugby Championship and Super Rugby calendars will remain as they are, despite potential changes being floated to better suit South Africa and Argentina. Changes to the calendar were being considered, but SANZAAR has ruled out the possibility of any shift taking place at a meeting in Paris. Rugby Australia chairman Hamish McLennan recently claimed that changes to the calendar remained on the table and New Zealand Rugby was stalling their progress. That in itself, though, is a bit strange, given that Hamish McLennan is the chairman of SANZAR, which apparently still exists. No one would have known that. And therefore, he chaired the meeting in Paris where it was agreed no change would happen. So he wants there to be change, but he decided, no, there won't be any change in a meeting. Okay. It's reported that the format for the Rugby Championship will be reviewed in 2026. This, to me, is just suggests it could be the first domino to fall in a global season taking effect, if you will, where our windows for club and international rugby align with the Northern Hemisphere, which is probably the best way forward for rugby to survive as a sport. Sticking with rugby, Welsh coach and Kiwi Warren Gatland has said he wouldn't have returned for a second stint if he'd known the full effect of the game's domestic troubles in Wales. Well, that's something. Gatland took the job last December, taking over from Wayne Pivac. Of course, he held the job between 2007 and 2019. This is what he had to say. When I came into the Six Nations, I had no idea. I didn't realise a lot of the things that were going on and the issues that were behind rugby and the squad and the players. He told the Scrum 5 podcast. It's Scrum V, but I'm assuming that's meant to be 5 in Roman numerals. There's been a sexism scandal and the resignation of the Welsh rugby chief executive. Lots going on with Wales rugby off the field. So, but that's interesting for him to concede that. Sticking with rugby, Curtly Beale, Australian rugby player, will go to trial over a number of sexual assault charges after an alleged incident at a Sydney licensed premises. This was back in December. He has pleaded not guilty to 1 count of sexual intercourse without consent and 2 counts of sexual touching when he appeared at the Downing Centre District Court today. Cricket, Black Caps fast bowler Trent Boult will add another chapter into his career as a 2020 freelancer. He signed on to join Mumbai Indians New York in the new US Major League Cricket. Some White Ferns news. Bowler Rosemary Mair and wicketkeeper Izzy Gaze have been recalled into the White Ferns squad for the upcoming tour to Sri Lanka. Right, this next story, just a warning, does talk about issues with mental health and suicide, so I'll just give you that warning now. Nick Kyrgios will reveal in upcoming episodes of a Netflix documentary that he spent time in a psychiatric hospital after losing at Wimbledon in 2019, this being reported by the Australian newspaper. A couple of quotes here. I was genuinely contemplating if I wanted to commit suicide, Kyrgios says in an episode of the documentary Breakpoint. I lost at Wimbledon. I woke up and my dad was sitting on the bed, full-blown crying. That was the big wake-up call for me. I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this. I ended up in the psych ward in London to figure out my problems. Just finally, Britain's cycling time trials banned transgender women from competing in the female category of competitive events while renaming the men's category to Open to promote inclusivity and fair competition in the sport. Cyclists hoping to compete in the female category must be assigned female at birth, cannot have undergone male puberty, and must have a testosterone level below 2.5. What's NMOL per litre? What's that?
NMOL, that's
numeral?
normal, isn't it? Oh.
Whatever NMOL per litre is, they have to have a testosterone level of 2.5 or lower of that. The newly formed Open category will be for male athletes, transgender women and men, and non-binary individuals. That's what's making news, Martin. What?
Yeah. Sorry, just in case you don't understand what a non-binary individual is, it's pretty simple, really. You can spell it.
I was born a boy. All that stuff happened in my mother's womb. There was a bit of a question mark a wee while there, and then suddenly, woof. Evolution sent me, and the chromosomes that were in my mother, sent me a particular way. I started to grow a penis in the womb, started to develop little scrotal sacs or something, and when I came out, I was a boy.
Yeah, clear as custard.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
He's a man of cricketing leisure. He spends his whole time cruising the world commentating the great game. He's in England right now. The Ashes are on us. Simon Doull. Ashes, mate, after watching Australia imperious against India, what are your thoughts going into the first test in Birmingham?
Look, they looked a good side. They were underdone as well. They didn't really have a lot of preparation, as in game preparation. India didn't have any test preparation either, but England are kind of going into it having played that test match against Ireland. All they've done between then and now is at a few net sessions and played a lot of golf. So I hope they are ready and ready to go. They'll be quite relaxed, that is for sure. And Aussie will be ready to go. Whatever bowling attack they pick, I think, is going to be very, very competitive. And England are going to find it harder, I think, to boss the Australian bowling attack than they have every other attack they've been up against. There's just a little bit of difference about this attack. And, I don't think England are certainly going to be able to do what they have done, but that doesn't mean they won't try. And I think that's the key. The things for me is, even if England do play aggressively and get away with it at times and put runs on the board, the fact for them is going to be getting out Labuschagne, Smith and Travis Head. That's where the Ashes will be won, and it might come down to the spin of Nathan Lyon as well from Australia's point of view. So first test, always a beauty, always a great first couple of hours to look forward to, so I can't really wait.
Simon Doull is with us, having a good old natter about what's happening in UK sport at the moment. People talk about Brendan McCullum changing, the way that England play and playing this aggressive style of cricket. Let's not forget that I think Australia invented this. I mean, I go back to when Gilly was coming in at number 7, mate. We've talked about this. The way he would bat on day 4, he'd get 80 off about 50 balls or something like that, and he'd put Aussie in a position where they all of a sudden have more than 3 sessions to get at you. I mean, this is how the Aussies have always played their test cricket.
Yeah, very similar. I mean, they've always had aggressive type players, whether it be, you talk about Gilchrist, Hayden, Ponting, Clark, Simons when he was playing Test cricket. They've always had the aggressive type player. I don't think this batch is quite of that same ilk. They're a little bit more stoic, particularly the Labuschagne and Smith combination. Travis Head's very aggressive. He was exactly that against India and kind of took the game away from them. So they've got those types of players if they want them. Look, England, as I say, look, they won't die wondering, for want of a better term. They're going to play the way that has been successful for them. And at the moment, it's very hard to knock. It's hard to knock the way they've been playing and the way they've won. They've won overseas, they've won at home. This is their toughest test, but it's just another test according to Stokes and McCullum, and they don't want to treat it any differently. Interesting that they brought Moeen Ali back for the first couple of test matches. It's an enormous call. A guy who didn't want to play, had no interest in playing Test cricket, retired from Test cricket. They asked him to go to Pakistan last year. He said no again, and they're still going back to him. He hasn't played a red ball game in 2 years.
Wow.
So that's a concern. His Test record against Australia is very ordinary, to say the least. And what sort of a message does it send to the rest of the spinners around the country who are working their backsides off in heat, in trying conditions, in first-class cricket, when a bloke who doesn't even want to play for the team 2 years ago can just get selected, on the whim of a coach and a captain?
Is it still going to be a massive deal? I mean, I can only imagine it is. It's 5 test matches. It's a big, long, hot summer. The weather's beautiful. It's Aussie. It's the Ashes, everything.
Massive. That is huge, mate. Look, the tickets you can't get tickets for love nor money on the whatever you call it, the sort of secondary market. So these are the eBays and that side of thing. It's a trade me type situation from New Zealand's point of view. Lord's tickets are going at about £2,000,
wow,
a pop. So they are so sought after, particularly days 1, 2, and 3 at all of the venues. And if you can get a hold of one, you're very, very fortunate, I think. So it's all about the Ashes. I mean, every paper, every news article at the moment in the sports sections, it is all Ashes, Ashes, Ashes. And, can England continue the way they've been playing? Can they compete with Australia? Will they be able to go as hard at this Australian attack, which has got some wherewithal about it? I mean, Scotty Boland was brilliant again against India, sorry. So, it's just all the great storylines, I think, that you look forward to. There's been a bit of toing and froing from Stuart Broad and Mitchell Stark as far as what happened in the last Ashes series. So everyone's looking for that little bite, that little bit of, that little bit of gossip that they can find to kick it off.
As unlikely as the Denver Nuggets winning the NBA championship, or how about the Vegas Golden Knights after just 6 years as a franchise winning the Stanley Cup? Ben Gotz joins us to talk about it. He's from the Las Vegas Review Journal. Stanley Cup champions, Las Vegas, the Golden Knights. How big a deal is this in Vegas?
Absolutely huge. I mean, this is a team that this city has just fallen in love with the last 6 years. I mean, obviously, I think when people think of Las Vegas, they think of the glitz and the glamour, the lights and all the gambling and everything. But what this team, I think, has done for a lot of people that actually live here day in and day out is give them a sense of identity that wasn't here earlier. So they've really brought the entire community together. So I think a lot of people here were just so thrilled that they got to celebrate their first championship last night.
So what is the difference in between this team and the team in 2018 that lost to the Capitals?
Yes, this team has more of that top-end star power. So the team that the Knights went on that magical run with, their first year as a franchise as an expansion team, was kind of a collection of misfits. That's what they called themselves. They were guys who were, left exposed by the other teams in the NHL that the Knights picked up, and they were able to use that as kind of a chip on their shoulder, as motivation, thinking they were, overlooked or underappreciated, and really just gelled into this amazing team that was able to do so much more than anyone expected of them. And this team is just very different. They still have 6 guys that were on that first team, but this is no longer this big underdog story. I mean, these guys have had expectations for years now since making that great run, and they've added really premier players to try to take themselves from this cute story into this big hockey heavyweight. So one of those guys, they got Captain Mark Stone, their second year, who's been such a good player for them ever since he arrived, and an incredible emotional leader. They've got Alex Pietrangelo, who's, a number one defenseman that they never had, and he's been leading their blue line. And then a year ago, last season, they got the number one center, Jack Eichel, to really fit in the top of their lineup, and he was the leading scorer of this postseason with 26 points. He had so many great passes to set up goals for the Knights. So the top-end talent that is on this team is just unlike what the Knights had in 2018, and it's really what ultimately, I think, ended up putting them over the top.
Ben Gotz from the Las Vegas Review-Journal with us, and we're talking about the Stanley Cup win for the Vegas Knights. I've got a whole lot of questions for you, and please forgive me if they sound like a little bit dumb, but I just really want to figure out where this team, this franchise, this achievement sits in terms of all of American sport. Is it being celebrated by the NHL? Do they love the fact that an expansion side after just 6 seasons has won?
Yes, the NHL has really gotten behind the Knights because they've really brought a unique flavor to the league that wasn't there previously. I mean, the Knights do things big and bold, right, just like their city. So their pregame entertainment is incredible, and that's led to a wave of improvements across the league. Like, they've gone out and gotten stars that other teams, haven't been as aggressive in terms of willing to chase. So they've made splashy moves that have made headlines across the NHL, which obviously gets the league excited because it's more attention for them, right? So I think they've really, in a very short amount of time, kind of catapulted themselves into one of the more recognizable, teams and brands in the NHL. So I think the league ultimately was pretty happy that they went on this run, that they were able to highlight, these players on a lot of these stories and just this franchise as a whole. And we've seen that throughout the last couple of years where Las Vegas has already hosted an all-star game for the NHL. They've been part of one of the league's big outdoor games. They're going to be part of the big regular season event in the NHL next year, the Winter Classic, where they play an outdoor game. In this case, it's going to be at a baseball stadium, the Seattle Mariners baseball stadium. They're going to put an ice rink there and have the Knights play the Seattle Kraken there. So they've really done a good job of highlighting the Knights. They've put a lot of focus on the Knights. And so I'm sure ultimately they were pleased that, the Knights went as far as they did and ultimately emerged with the trophy.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tide 5.
5 separate sporting topics, so roughly 60 seconds on each, and when the bell goes ding, we move on to the next topic. Roger, not even on the bench again yesterday. I've had a bit of a Twitter war over this with people. What the hell to do with this guy? Could the Warriors take him back straight away? I'm going to ask Justin Morgan about this. South Africa, Argentina, they want the Rugby Championship moved to March, April. Is this the beginning of that global calendar that we've only been talking about since Moses played number 9 for the Mount Sinai under-15s? We've already done the Ashes. We'll move on from that, talk about that after 3. Fog in the valleys. Yesterday, the coldest ever day in Auckland since records were kept, about the first coldest day ever kept. Will you be watching the IPL Texas starring Trent Boult? And a bigger deal, the Vegas win in the Stanley Cup or the Nuggets win as far as NBA basketball goes. Kicking it off with the rugby, though, South Africa, Argentina, nothing's going to change. I love the fact that News Hub put this out as an exclusive on their website. Well, NZME do our news, and it's an exclusive for them as well. So you're not, brothers. Hand off. You know, the word exclusive in journalism in New Zealand these days is farcical. Back to the topic, though. South Africa, Argentina, want it moved. Should it be moved? I think it has to be moved eventually, doesn't it? That the future of rugby does not exist with Super Rugby, and it doesn't exist with us fighting the rest of the planet because we're way down this end of the world. We've got to somehow align ourselves with the Northern Hemisphere. That is the future. And if that means rearranging our rugby calendar, it means rearranging our rugby calendar, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the future, and they have the power.
They got the money. They got the money.
Yeah, we don't have the say in this. And as you mentioned before, it's been there's been talks about it for a number of years that it's the best thing to happen for world rugby, and it probably is, because it's, at least in this part of the world, we don't have the same interest in our provincial competition that we once did. We don't have the same interest in our super competition that we once did, and that only started 27 years ago. And so the only interest is the All Blacks. And the sad thing about the All Blacks is that because our provincial, the depth of talent and the quality of talent in New Zealand feels like it's worse than it's ever been, or it's at its worst.
I agree.
Then that'll make the All Blacks worse, probably for a number of generations. So if the All Blacks start to plummet in terms of their quality and their star power and their attractiveness, and they can't win World Cups and their brand plummets, then what do we have to offer to say, no, we've got power, we've got this, look at us, we can dictate this, we can do our own thing. It'll get to a point where we have to align ourselves with the Northern Hemisphere, which is actually a great, it's not, it'd be out of our control a little bit, but it's also a very good move.
I think it's the future for the sport. Future for the sport if it actually wants to sustain and maintain. RTS, what to do now? I'm going to ask Justin Morgan about this. Not on the bench again for the Blues. Does he just get up and leave? I mean, the Blues, if they lose to the Crusaders this weekend, is that him gone? Does that him he just goes at them?
Well, no, we've been saying this for weeks. The first or second time he wasn't picked, we were saying, just go to the Warriors now. So what's the point in still saying the same thing? He's getting paid a lot of money by NZR to just train and then either go to the game and have a couple of drinks with some friends or sit at home. He'll play for Auckland in the NPC, but he probably won't want to because there'll be 2 people in attendance. Like, it's strange but it also involves the Warriors coming to the party and welcoming him back earlier than they had hoped.
He left the Warriors contract early. Why can't he leave the Blues contract early? Isn't it that simple?
Yeah, sure, but I mean, I don't know. I guess you got to get your ducks in a row from a financial perspective. If you're the Warriors and NZR have to be willing to let him go early, which I don't actually think they will. Because at least they have a little bit of control of the situation and they won't want to appease. They wouldn't want to appease.
I mean, what's the point?
Well, do you think they care?
No, they probably don't. You're right. Bigger deal, the Vegas win or the Nuggets win?
I think the Nuggets win because Vegas were in the Stanley Cup finals in their very first year of existence and they've been in the playoffs, I'm pretty sure, every single year since. So they've been a very good side since they started. Whereas the Nuggets overturned 44 years, was it, of just misery?
47 years.
47, never making the finals, getting as far as the conference finals on 3 or 4 occasions. And they've never been a franchise. I mean, purely looking at the Western Conference, you look at the Lakers, you look at the Spurs, you look at Golden State, you look at the Houston Rockets to an extent, you look at the Phoenix Suns to an extent-ish, the Utah Jazz as well. They had some good times in the 90s. All of these franchises are much bigger brands than the Denver Nuggets. And you could even argue the likes of Portland Trailblazers, they have a championship. There's so many teams in the Western Conference that have been to the finals and won a championship, so much more that their brand is so much bigger in the US and globally, that to think that someone like the Nuggets has come along and won it with a formula that goes against what the NBA has done for the last 10 to 15 years, it's actually bloody incredible.
There you go. I think well surmised. I've got nothing to add to that. Why won't you be watching Trent Boult in the IPL Texas tournament?
Will there be the ability to watch it? Is it going to be televised anywhere? Is it going to be broadcast anywhere? It's such a minnow tournament.
Who cares? But that's what you've chosen, Trent. That's your career now,
He's
mate.
happy. He doesn't care.
Don't come crawling back
but
wanting
he's
a black
not.
cap.
He's not.
He does, mate. He wants to play in the one-day World Cup.
He wants to play in the World Cup because that was part of the initial agreement. But outside of the World Cups, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's sitting there right now getting his money. He's ordering his deep dish New York pizza.
Look, if you're a rock and roll star, you want to perform on a stage in front of people, don't you?
Yeah, but then that equates to getting more money, doesn't it? If you're a rock star and you're selling out massive stadiums and big parks around the world, you're getting more money. Whereas in this case, well, no, I don't have to play at the World Cup because I'm actually getting paid more to play in front of nobody. I mean, his motivation is totally money.
No, really?
Yeah,
let me do the Simon Barnett. Really? Is Hitler a bad
Get him
man?
out of your head.
Really?
Get him out of your head.
Finally.
Why do you care so much about Simon Barnett? That should be a Type 5 topic. Why do you keep bringing him up?
Because every time I watch Sky Sport, his cheesy mush is on there trying to sell.
Gotz. Great supporters of sport.
Finally, fog in the valleys, mate. Yesterday, the coldest day ever.
No, today was colder.
You reckon?
Oh, mate.
Oh, please.
When I got out of bed,
really?
I shivered.
Really?
Yeah.
Get Justin Morgan on, mate.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Wawas. 6th place. Can it be sustained? What about even dreaming of a top 4 finish? Justin Morgan, assistant coach. Welcome back to the show, mate.
Hey, mate, how you doing?
I'm doing as bloody well as the team's doing. How good?
Oh, you must be doing fantastic.
Thank you, Justin.
So, it's been a good start, mate, hasn't it? You know, we've got off to a good start, put ourselves in a good position for the back half of the year.
Key differences compared to last year for you are what?
A couple of things. I think we've got some better players. We recruited very well. Murad Nakora, international. Chance, international. Dylan Walker, former international state of origin player. Tamati Martin, international. To go along with the players that we've already had. So I think that's point number one. Point number two, we're back home, and I think everyone's a lot more settled. I didn't realise until we came home how much being settled meant to so many people, and even to myself. I most really wasn't disturbed by travelling away and living in Australia for 2 or 3 years as much as some other people were. But even myself, it's been nice just to come home and have a regular, place to go for your gym and your office and all those types of things. And obviously, the coach has done a great job. He's come in, he's, I've known Webby, over 20 years now. I've worked with him for a number of years at different clubs, and he's always been a high-quality coach in terms of technical knowledge. But I think, the part that's really impressed me since he's come back is his big picture view and his man management, which is, naturally what head coaches need to do more of. And he's obviously, done a great job over the years in picking up different things from different clubs and coaches that he's worked for. So I put it down to those three things, and we're all gelling, which is handy.
The whole time that you've known him, did you know that he was going to be a guy that could take on a head coaching role at some stage and make it work?
I got him very early in his coaching career. He worked in the UK as my assistant, and I had him for a year, and then he had to come back to Australia for visa reasons. And when he was gone, I realised how important he was to me and to the club that I was coaching at the time. He was always a great sounding board for me and a voice of reason. So he always had the ability to see the big picture and understand if you made this decision, this might be the reaction, this might be the knock-on effect. He always did that really well, and for a period of time he coached his own team over there, and I watched him very closely, and I had no doubt that if he really had the desire to be a head coach, and I wasn't sure if early on he wanted to be a head coach. I think he was quite happy being an assistant because he likes the footy side of things as well, sinking his teeth into the technical aspect and the tactical aspect of coaching, which you tend to do a little bit more of when you're an assistant. But he always had the temperament and the mannerism if he wanted to be a head coach. And obviously I stayed in contact with him, and I know he has a huge opinion of Ivan Cleary. He's worked with him at a couple of different clubs now, and he's proven time and time again that Ivan's one of the best coaches in the NRL. He's obviously won a couple of grand finals recently, but he's been a survivor in a game or in a job that is very cutthroat. So, I'm super happy for Webby that he decided to take it on, and I'm super happy that he's doing a great job in getting the plaudits that are warranted. He knows that the job's not done yet. He's certainly a very driven character. He likes to win, and he also likes to improve. So I think they're two good characteristics to have in a head coach.
The attitudinal change, and just cast your mind back to last year. We won 2 out of the last 16. I hate to remind everyone about this. That's the truth, though, and you can't dust over it. And watching Stacey when he was the coach, press conference after press conference, talking about guys giving up, not wanting to play with pride. So the attitudinal shift, it's something that's real. How do you put your finger on it and say, what have you noticed, how that attitude has changed?
Well, I think, I think the back end of last year, there's only a couple of wins. I think everybody was extremely upset and embarrassed and all those negative feelings that you get. And I thought, coming home, everybody said, they're home now, and I think it was a reality check. We're home now. We're just going to have to do it. We're going to have to pull our finger out, and we're going to have to get the job done, because fans, sponsors, supporters of the club, they didn't want to see us, be living away, but they also didn't want to see us, losing games, So we just had to do it. And, Webby came with a super positive attitude to coaching. And I think that helped, and the happiness that players are feeling by being at home. And I use Sean as the best example.
Yeah, it's a great example.
He's at home now. He's settled. He obviously still has the up in the air. Is he going to play next year? Not going to play next year? So that's still weighing on his mind. But the fact that he's at home with his wife, he's with his daughter, he's happy. Tohu Harris is a huge family man.
Him,
while he had his wife and son over in Australia with him, it wasn't his home. So being able to take the kids to school and all those little things, really, really important to those guys. And I think that's helped, give them extra drive.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
Next!
I'm the Minister of Common Sense, and I'll tell you what we learned from that. We learned that this is a different Warriors side in every single aspect of. What impressed you the most before I tell you, Lachlan? What impressed me the most? Listen to him then.
What impressed me the most? There was something that caught my ear, and I am struggling to...
Okay, well, I'll tell you while you remember.
Okay, yeah, I'll remember. You go first.
The fact that it's a buy, that the players are coming in, and that they're not just coming and turning up for training and clocking in, that they're not just going, okay, well, it's a buy. Okay, we got, this to do. They're coming in, and as he says, they got, I want to work on this. I want to work on this. We need to do this. We need to do that. That is the attitudinal shift. Yeah. Okay, that's not... Remember last year, and I was saying, these, rhymes with bastards, these guys need to be put on contracts where they get paid to play, and if they don't play and don't turn up, like Stacey Jones says, then rip their contracts out, well, don't pay them. That's not this year's team. I think I was justified and angry like every other fan last year, saying, what am I looking at? I'm looking at guys that don't give us stuff, that don't care. And that's the biggest change that I've noticed this year. That and the fitness, obviously. But look, if you've got somebody that comes to work every day, that wants to be at work every day, that is actually looking around with bright eyes and is asking, is there something I can do? Is there something like... These are just human things. These are the things that actually physically make a difference. What impressed you?
Yeah, and you jogged my memory. It was where he talked about when they came back home, and he talked about how this year's been really good. And your players are back home. They're back in their environment, Sean Johnson in particular. But the one thing is when they came back, they're like, all right, well, this is it. We're home now. And he implied there's no excuses.
No excuses.
We've got to get our finger out of our, excuse my French, out of our asses.
Yes.
Work hard and go out there and actually earn it. And they are. And that's what really stuck out to me, because I thought, okay, well, it's a shame that attitude couldn't be adopted overseas, but when you were playing away from home. But sure, if that's the case, then as long as this coming home and putting you in a more comfortable environment did it, then good stuff. And for him to say that they just sat there and went, no, we've actually got to do this now. We've got to actually start winning games and putting all the effort in. I really liked that.
Next!
When they talk about the fitness, and so Justin Morgan with us here, if you just joined the program at People, we were talking to the Warriors assistant coach, and he was telling us that, look, the different fitness levels, this is something that is palpable. This is something that is real. You must have noticed this watching this team play, because in that Canberra game, that first half, and we were watching it at the pub, and I did make reference to this. I said, after about 25 minutes, we haven't had the ball. We haven't even been down their end. We've basically spent the whole time tackling, defending, absorbing. Then you've actually got to regroup, get the ball, and you've got to go score some points. Then, as he said, by the end of the game, you've got to run over the top of them. That's an attitude, but it's also a fitness level. And I think that one of the things that Zane the Warriorholic has pointed out this year, which is so true, is that the Warriors look fitter, don't they? They come on strong at the end of games. I don't know how many seasons since 1995 you could ever accuse this team of doing that. Something has changed there. It's not just attitude. It's actually physical fitness and strength.
Yeah, and where does that all stem down from? What's the one glaring thing that's changed from last year to this year?
Winning.
But not so much them coming home. Because I think if you're a good enough team with high enough standards, you can go play in Australia and actually be in a rough area for the whole season, like the other NRL clubs. If you're a good enough team with a good enough coach, good enough roster, you can still hold those high standards and win a fair number of games. The main difference is the coach. That's the big change from last year to this year. The roster hasn't changed a huge amount. There's not much in the way of difference with the administrative side of the club. It's the coach. He's come in and set a standard. But he's also clearly linked into and connected with the playing group in a way that Nathan Brown couldn't, Stephen Kearney couldn't, and in a way that very few coaches can do in the NRL right now.
Those guys do it. They're good. They're not bad coaches. I was going to say they're not good. They're not great, but they are good coaches. They must be good coaches. You don't get these jobs if you are a bum.
No, I agree. And I'm a bit of a defender of Nathan Brown's, who did well with the Dragons. I don't think was given enough time with the Newcastle Knights.
You were absolutely on his
and I thought he was a great pickup for the Warriors. But I think that coaches have different skills. Everyone knows the game really well, but coaches have different skill sets about how they work with other players. And there's some coaches, if you give them good players, and I think Trent Robinson's one of these. You give them good players, they'll get a lot out of them, guys who work hard and whatnot. But if you get given a pretty average roster, you just can't get anything out of them. And that's what I think was the case with Nathan Brown. Whereas there's someone else who I think Wayne Bennett's like this, and Andrew Webster's clearly like this, and I think Craig Bellamy would be to an extent because there's all these players who come out of nowhere at the Storm, that they're given average playing groups, but they get them to perform above and beyond what's expected. And it's the way they tap into those players and they tap into their heads.
We talked to Cappy about this last year, about North Queensland, right? And I'm hearing a lot of the same stuff that he was saying to us last year. Maybe we might recycle some bits of that interview tomorrow, actually, and revisit it. That Andrew Webster is actually installing in these Warriors players.
Do you mean Todd Payton?
Sorry, Todd Payton.
Yeah.
Sorry. But it's very similar philosophies and theories, isn't it, around players? Because remember his roster last year. I mean, that's
average.
It was, yeah. But managed to turn it into.
And what was that thing that he said that he did during preseason when he asked guys to run up a June or something and go do it again? The guys who went and did it again without any arguments, he's like, those are my players.
Those are my guys.
Yeah.
Next!
What is the limit for this team right now? How far can they go right now this season? 14 games in, 10 to go.
Truthfully, I would say a spot in the top 4 and one win away from a grand final. Genuinely. I think based on form, based on how they play, they get the basics right. There's clearly a drive within the playing group, and they've got a taste of winning as well.
See, that's it.
They've got a taste of it, and they're all like, I haven't. Like Marcelo Montoya said, he's never been to the finals before, and now he's like, I want a team that's actually winning games, and we're solidly in the top 8. I don't want this to end, and they'll work a lot harder for that. There's a lot of teams in the NRL who should be playing better. The Roosters, the Eels, they should be much higher on the table. Cowboys, and be in that premiership bubble, but they're not, and so that kind of helps the Warriors and opens the door for them. But if they just keep plugging along and winning games, and they find themselves in the top 4. You know, that you're given 2 lifelines. You're given the first week of the finals, and if you lose there, you got another week, and it's a home game as well in the semi-finals. And if you can win that, then you get to the preliminary finals.
US Open Golf, third major of the year, underway tomorrow from the Action Network. Matt Vincenzi runs us over what's going to happen at the LA Country Club. Tell us about this course to start with, the LA Country Club.
Yeah, so the course is actually, I think it's pretty unique relative to the different courses we've seen at the U.S. Opens in the last 5 or 10 years. Typically, you see a course with kind of narrow fairways. You got to hit it long and straight to compete. This course, to me, feels a little different than that. The fairways are wider. It's sloping, undulating fairways, so the ball's going to, if you hit the wrong spot in the fairway, it's going to funnel all the way down off to the rough. So I think it's going to be a more strategic golf course, and there's going to be a lot of run out because it's going to be firm and fast. I think the around the green game is going to be pretty difficult. You get some nasty, gnarly areas up around the green. You get some deep bunkers. I've actually heard it compared to some courses on the Australian sandbelt, kind of closer to you guys out there. But I think it's going to be a very unique test.
All right, let's go through then the leaderboard. I mean, you had some great picks. Of course, you got it right at the last major. Plus, you also nailed DeChambeau as the first-round leader as well. So let's start there. First-round leader is going to be who?
That's a good one. I like Cameron Smith to start out quick. I think the courses are going to play to his strength. I think you need to be really creative. You need to be a shot maker. You need to have some different around the green. Like, I don't think there's one approach you can take around the green because of the different situations you'll find yourself in. I think you got to be creative and a smart shot maker. And I think the wider fairways will help him. He hasn't been great in U.S. Open so far, but I think the wider fairways can help him keep the ball and play more, and then use that terrific short game to have a good round.
Okay, overall then, Koepka, as I said, you got last time. Who's your favourite to take it all?
So this one is not going to be as fun as the last couple that I've done because he's a favorite. But to me, there are certain times when you need to just take the favorite and not overthink it, and that's Scotty Scheffler. What he's been doing in terms of his ball striking is pretty much Tiger Woods level. And people say that, hyperbolically, but truly, if you compare the stats, he's as close as you're ever going to get to that. He's averaging about 15 strokes tee to green on the field over his past 10 or 12 starts. He hasn't finished worse than 12th at all this entire season. The putter's gone cold, but, for example, at Memorial in his last start, he finished one shot out of a playoff. He lost 8.2 strokes putting. So if he putts average, he wins the tournament by 7 strokes. So I think this week, if he can just find a way to be okay with the putter, it doesn't have to be good. It can just find a way to be field average, he's going to win.
Okay, who else have you got alongside him? Talk about Rory with us. He's Scott Brooks Koepka. He's partnered in the first group. First day or first couple of days. He's partnered with him. Here's a guy that I just keep thinking all the time that he will break through. He is going to break through and win another major. When does that happen?
Yeah, I don't think it's this time. Nothing would shock me with him because he really is, so talented, and that's why everyone thinks that it is going to happen when it every single year. But he's 0 for his last, I think, 32 majors. Which seems crazy considering he was, the face of the generation of golf after Tiger. And, so for him, it's between the ears. I think mentally he just has put a lot of pressure on himself, and that pressure's built. And this year it seems like it's almost doubled because of the whole PGA Tour versus Live stuff and the fact that he was kind of anointed the spokesman for the PGA Tour and put in this position, whether voluntarily or, they had him do it. I think that's even put more pressure on him, and I think it's really getting to him mentally. And I think, would it shock me if he won? No, but I just don't think he's in the right headspace right now to go out there and win a major.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.